Okay, we are getting started. Thank you very much for being here. The opportunity for us to meet and talk, I'll say it again this week. Harold, you mentioned in a very sincere and grateful comment to me saying thank you. I wish I could say some of these things. And you said thank you. Also, I've been stopped in my travels at party stores, at places of business that I work with, and people have said thank you. Keep up the good work. Make sure you keep saying things. I'm not going to get too much detail. I want to be a little bit more of an overview and then get into the purpose of why we meet on Fridays and refocus that. But we are living in a very unique time frame, never before seen in our country, so I wanted to touch on a couple of things. Here are some things that I'm going to run by quickly, but then also I want to finish with why we have government at all. These are some of the articles. I know I sent some people in this room some articles today. I hope you read them. But these are some of the things that I've read in the last week, and we have paper copies of them. When unity means shut the hell up. This is an article by Ben Shapiro. Pre-election concerns over Dominion voting systems highlighted in Georgia lawsuit. That actually was going back to the 2018 elections. It actually was, there was indications of this back in the runoffs and the primaries in the summer. Read these articles. These are fantastic. Pennsylvania court rules Secretary of State improperly changed deadline 2 days before the election. Dominion contractor says she witnessed fraudulent actions at Detroit ballot count site. Trump campaign highlights alleged dead voters casting ballots in Pennsylvania. That seems to be something that is almost discounted. That's never going to change the total vote amount. But there's so much smoking gun information. Michigan attorney urges judge to order audit over election fraud claims. Trump bombshell, Dominion software deleted over 2.7 million votes nationwide, switched over 500,000 votes from Trump to Biden. Election rigging and via mail-in ballots, the real purpose of the COVID bioweapon now becomes more clear. That is an opinion article, but it is based off of a great deal of information, not the least of which starts with the CCP, partly funded by our federal government, and we don't know what our tax dollars go to, but this is an example of something where I think we would all be questioning, why are our tax dollars going to partially fund a lab in Wuhan? Well, because it's one of the only level 4 security labs. Well, I guess they didn't do a very good job of that, did they? Or was it intentional? Trump fires Deep State Defense Secretary Mark Esper, indicating that there could be likely plan for military involvement in a declaration of insurrection. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I do believe that when the people are saying to us, and these are, Tucker Carlson had a guy on last night that's a liberal talk show host, and he's saying, hey, Trump had 4 years to drain the swamp. He didn't do it. Now you got a chance. Do the right thing. Okay, you don't drain that swamp in 4 years. It took 250 years to create the swamp. The last 100 years have been overwhelmingly corrupt. We all want to complain about it, but we never really want to do things about it. This is where I go to explaining to my kids my apologies for not protesting in the street. Because we keep seeing these things happen, but I'm so comfortable. You're so comfortable. We live in the greatest country on the planet. Let's not go to the street yet. Tens of thousands of unsealed ballots arrived in Michigan County, all for Democrats. That's one of the lawsuits. Trump fires Esper. That was another article. This is just another reporting agency. Election system in Michigan County appear to be connected to the internet. This is in a sworn affidavit. These are not people that are just saying things on the internet and then we need to, believe it's a conspiracy theory. These are people that are putting their lives and their families' well-being on the line in the state of Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, and saying, and other states too, Wisconsin, and saying, I will swear under oath in a court of law that I watched these things happen. Now, we also know, like in the case of Veritas is actually reporting this, in the case of the Michigan postal worker, he's now being pressured from the progressives, from the left, to take back his story. Thousands of unregistered people allowed to vote by mail in Michigan. Message to Trump: we are willing to put our lives on the line to protect you in the constitutional republic. This is an article on what life under Biden would be. I think it is very, very telling. Again, I hope I'm wrong. I hope this article's wrong. I hope that Joe Biden would rule from a center, trying to heal our country. Well, we're already seeing lists being created. In case you supported Trump, you don't need to work in the corporate world again. Does this sound like this is going to be something? Black Lives Matter is already pressing Biden to say, you need to put our agenda first and foremost in your domestic policy. Do we think that the COVID-19 response, lockdown, we need a strong 4 to 6 week, 6 to 8 week lockdown nationwide? What do we know about lockdowns? Lockdowns kill people. Lockdowns have led to more deaths than what COVID has. This is globally. We have children dying in Bali because Americans aren't traveling. I just give you one example. That's just one. The Save the Republic, Trump may invoke the 14th Amendment. Democrats suggest people move to Georgia in order to vote in the elections. This is former presidential Democratic candidate Yang is saying, look, all of us wealthy people need to move to Georgia right now in December, get registered to vote so we can vote in the January 5th runoff. Which is illegal. This is the things that they're talking about, though. Does that sound like it's fair to anybody? Does anybody think that sounds like it's fair?
James, that has been pointed out that is specifically illegal by Georgia state law. So
certainly.
They can talk about it.
Certainly. There are a number of things that have been proven to be illegal according to state laws, including in Pennsylvania. It's up to the legislature to decide how their voting goes, but the Supreme Court favored, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court favored on the side of, we can change these voting laws within 2 weeks of the election. They tried to legislate it. The legislation in Pennsylvania said, no, we're not making these changes. And it went to the Supreme Court 2 days before the election. They were 4-4. It's in the Constitution, not just the state law, that Pennsylvania will decide how their election will be run. And yet, they avoided it. So my point is, yes, it is against the law. They seem to be doing a lot that's against the law. And that's my point of my reading all of this information, and it is overwhelming. And to answer Ben's question, yes, I read every one of these articles. I would encourage all of us to do more reading and reach out and try to find alternatives. I read the headlines from CNN. I read the headlines from Yahoo every single day so I can see how they spin it. I was just in a public place, ABC was on, and the announcement came in that Arizona is now called for Biden. He extends his electoral college lead. Trump continues not to concede, and he's causing electoral process chaos. If you read that article and you're sitting in a public place but can't hear it, and in the details it doesn't really matter, it's the conditioning of the mind that is being perpetrated against all of us. Election data analyzed, producing detailed list of over 500,000 votes switched from Trump to Biden. Voting machine software theft and heavy fraud focused on swing states. This article is powerful. And it's not hyperbole. They have a great deal of evidence. Whether or not the Department of Justice and the FBI want to pursue this, that's yet to be seen. But in individual states, there is a constitutional responsibility by state legislators to make sure that this is legitimized. If Biden won, Biden won. But if you cheated, changed votes, that's not a win. New conservative investment fund boycotts companies with liberal agendas. I found this to be an outstanding article. They've just created an ETF. AT&T and Verizon are on this. Facebook, Twitter, companies that are part of this challenge to people to believe in the legitimacy of this election. Those companies that fund this, they're on this list. We're not going to invest in them. This thing has the potential to go a long way from an investing standpoint. And there are already ETFs that only support progressive and the Democratic National Party and other things. So this is going to be in a good space. I believe that. Biden's COVID-19 task force plan paid people not to work. Trish Reagan does a great job of breaking down what they're going to do. That same 6 to 8 week period of time, the guy's from Minnesota. He believes we've got for medium-sized and small companies and everybody, stay home. We're going to pay you all not to work. The problem with the last lockdown was, like in Minnesota, 78% of the jobs were considered essential. I said it before. Whose job is essential? Whose company is essential? The one I created, the one I've spent my entire life pursuing, trying to build. Read this article. This is a great article. Black Lives Matter co-founder urges Biden-Harris to give top priority to its agenda. And then, of course, Project Veritas leaks clip purportedly showing federal agents pressuring the USPS whistleblower. These are some very powerful articles. The one we couldn't print out today because it was 17 pages, I guess we had problems with it. It talks about in detail this recording device right here that we have, this telephone, and it's more than that, right? It's a computer. Many of you might be too young, but how many of you remember when we used to go to the movies and they had subliminal messaging?
Well, it was the best.
They'd throw the popcorn up and next thing you know, you're hungry. We were told that they stopped doing that it was made illegal. Again, back to things that are made illegal. What we now know, and we have the data, and this data, if you read this article, it's from a guy who leans left. He says, listen, I'm a Democrat, I lean left, but I started in 2016 and I captured 13,000, say the name again, it's ephemeral messaging. Ephemeral messaging is that subliminal stuff that was happening to us back in the day. Now what they do is, ephemeral messaging is used by Google specifically, they were captured, and Facebook as well. And during the 2016 election cycle, they were able to capture 13,000. They just pop up right away and then they disappear. You don't ever see them again. So you can't prove that it's there. But they captured them. They've captured in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, for this cycle. And what did they find? They found that leading up to the election, only known liberals, based on your search history, they know whether or not you're a liberal. That's how much Google knows about you. Those people were sent reminders to vote. If you're known as a conservative through Google, you were not sent reminders to vote. It's a small thing. You say, well, what does that mean? Well, we also know that the searches for whether or not the Biden family all became millionaires while he was vice president, those searches are censored. So the control that big tech has over all of us is becoming more and more clear, which includes this election process. I know Andrew and I have talked about the importance of, yes, you can do things in a timely manner, but do we just want to turn everything over to, voting from our phones, as we talked about before? Just sending in, oh, my vote counts. We have no ideas and I'm not a code writer, but for anybody at this table that have been involved in writing of code for certain algorithms and these web-based systems. What this gentleman is reporting, and again, he's a Democrat. He's a left-leaning person who simply has a bunch of data that he's dumped, given to the Washington Post. Why did he give it to the Washington Post? Because all of the Washington Post's emails are on the Google Drive. Why is that important? Because he knew when he sent this information to the Washington Post, Google would get it. They would have this information. They kept the article from being printed 5 days before the election, and then they changed what they were doing 3 days before the election. Why is that significant? Because they realize, oh, wait a minute. A bunch of our information, they're actually got a backdoor to our information. We got a backdoor to all the data from human beings. Now they got a backdoor to our backdoor. That's I guess, on the street how we would explain it. Why is it important that the legitimacy of this election is convincing to me and 72 million plus? Because if this information that I was reading 6 weeks prior to the election is true, it's not just a smoking gun. There seems to be a lot of credible evidence. Whether it changes the election or not, I don't know. But you've got a class civil war that is just waiting to explode because I don't believe the results of what they're telling me. And why don't I believe it? Because the media has never, they've only projected winners. They've never declared the winner. And nobody's ever ran for office of presidency and looked at the system and so quickly said, "Oh, I'll take your declaration of me winning." It's as if they're so desperate to try to convince our minds that Donald Trump is the president and he wants to be a dictator and he will not leave without military assistance. I don't believe that. I believe he's fighting for the forgotten men and women in this country. I am one of the forgotten men. I believe he fights for me. I do not believe he concedes on Monday, which a number of people told me already today. You know, he's not publicly visible right now because he's planning his concession speech and he's going to concede on Monday. I think that's a mistake. I think he has afforded securities as president that he wouldn't otherwise be if he concedes. Why do we have government anyway? Alexander Hamilton, quote, "Why has government been instituted at all? Because the passions of man will not conform to the dictates of reason and justice without constraint." The government is there to keep a very small elite group of people, oligarchs as we like to refer to them, from taking control of every aspect of our life. That's why we are asking the government to do the next right thing. Constitutionally, it's the greatest document ever written. I love our country. And I hope that we can get through this election process and provide some legitimacy to it. Enough on that. And I'm going to set all these articles over on the table. I'd love you guys to read them. The purpose for coming together every week has taken a great deal of a political aspect to it, yes. However, and it seems to be very important. Obviously, I believe it's very important. But our life is going to go on. And part of that is generating revenue. How do we generate revenue? By the connectivity that is in this room and beyond. So it's not just who's in this room today, but it's who we know and who we know that they know, that we can connect people, and through those connections and referrals, we can generate some revenue. One of those things is, we had done the cryptocurrency deal, and just because of the complications of it before, we unwound that. But one of those things is still our interest in sharing investment ideas. I just shared one with you about the conservative fund. Well, another idea is CloudCoin. And what I would like to do is I'd like to get into a conversation, and it's just a brief conversation with Andrew Lay from Hierographics. And we know that Hierographics is doing some great things with their web base and development of promoting other companies. But also, we'd like to hear some of the basis of CloudCoin and why we believe it's so important. And I'm going to give you some of my ideas on why I agree with you as it's so important. So much of the world right now is 124-bit encryption, 128-bit?
And 256, yeah.
I'm sorry?
128 and 256, yes.
All right, 128 and 256-bit encryption. So much of the world's security is based off of that. Bitcoin is based off of
Both.
both 128 and 256-bit encryption. All right. And what is, and the danger of that is we believe that quantum computers, now becoming more readily available, can break those encryption codes in a short period of time. Is that correct?
That is one of the concerns for Bitcoin that they're trying to address, as well as Ethereum and some of the other blockchain-based currencies, yes.
Okay. And CloudCoin, and it has a patent on this technology, is how many bit encryption?
Well, it works off of a different system. It's actually a 512-bit encryption, AES encryption.
So a 512-bit ADS encryption.
AES is what it's called. AES.
AES.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is actually an